At first glance, people with avoidant tendencies seem almost untouched when a relationship ends. They often look calm, distant, and unaffected by their partner's absence. But the truth is very different. Going no contact doesn't leave them free and unbothered. It creates a slow, crushing psychological impact that grows heavier with time instead of fading away. For anxious partners, the pain is immediate and intense, but it tends to heal as weeks and months pass. For avoidants, however, the process is reversed. Their unique attachment style and coping strategies delay their emotional reaction, meaning they face a deeper, longer-lasting struggle that can follow them for years. The most misunderstood part of avoidant psychology is the delayed response. Their attachment system works on a different clock. The full reality of losing someone doesn't hit them right away. It can take months, sometimes even years, before the impact sets in. When anxious partners break up, they feel devastated immediately. Avoidants, on the other hand, often feel a sense of relief at first. Their defense systems kick in and create emotional distance that feels protective. But those defenses eventually weaken. And when they do, avoidants face a wave of regret and grief that they can no longer block. During the first 30 to 90 days of no contact, avoidants usually experience what psychologists call deactivation euphoria. It's a temporary high, a sense of relief that convinces them they made the right choice. They believe the emotional distance is necessary for their survival, which makes them look as if they're handling things better than their ex. In reality, they're simply living on a different timeline. By suppressing their natural human need for closeness, they burn through enormous psychological energy. Over time, that energy runs out, and their defenses begin to collapse. Around months 3 to 6, the cracks start to show. The excitement of freedom fades, and they begin noticing what's missing: daily companionship, support, comfort, and the stability their partner once gave them, though often without realizing it consciously. The 6 to 12-month period is usually the hardest. By this time, avoidants often understand the true value of what they lost. They recognize that their behavior damaged something important, and yet they can't go back or undo the damage. Ironically, this usually happens right when their ex has already begun healing and moving forward. By months 12 to 18, many avoidants enter what could be called attachment panic. They suddenly realize the depth of their loss and also see their own role in destroying the relationship. This delayed awareness can be even more painful than immediate grief because it comes with self-blame and clarity about their destructive patterns. Unfortunately, by the time they reach this point, reconciliation is usually impossible. For most people, grief slowly fades. But for avoidants under no contact, the opposite happens. Their pain compounds. Because they suppress emotions early on, they miss the natural window for healthy grieving. That buried pain doesn't disappear. It gathers strength and resurfaces later, more intense than before. Around month 3, they feel the lack of daily companionship. By month 6, they notice the absence of emotional support. At month 12, they realize the loss of shared plans for the future. By month 18, the loneliness and isolation become undeniable. Many try to fill the gap with new partners, casual flings, or busier social lives. But replacements never fully provide the safety, acceptance, or comfort of the bond they lost. Each failed attempt only deepens their awareness of what they gave up. On top of that, they see their ex thriving, building new relationships, growing, and moving on. The contrast between their own stagnation and their ex's progress adds another painful layer. And because avoidants rarely talk openly about their struggles, they end up carrying this weight alone. No contact creates a type of psychological trap for avoidants. They crave closeness, yet their own past behavior prevents them from reaching out. They realize they may have destroyed the best relationship they were ever capable of having. And since their ex is usually no longer available, their regret becomes permanent. They often monitor their ex through social media or mutual friends, which only adds to their pain. Each sign of happiness or growth without them serves as proof of what they lost. And unlike in past relationships where they could return at will, no contact removes that option. The lack of control is deeply unsettling. This ongoing denial drains them. The more evidence builds that they do in fact miss their ex, the harder it becomes to convince themselves otherwise. Eventually, the energy required to keep pretending exhausts them. Their deepest fear sets in that they may never find anyone else who offers the same level of acceptance and love. For many, this realization creates a long-lasting fear about whether they're even capable of sustaining a healthy relationship in the future. Avoidants often struggle with isolation even while in relationships, but no contact magnifies it because they typically don't build many deep friendships or lean on family for emotional support. They end up suffering in silence. Men especially may feel added pressure not to admit they're hurting, particularly if they were the one who ended things. Social conditioning tells them to stay strong and emotionless, which leaves them even more alone. Without their partner's social connections, many lose a big portion of their social life. Friends they shared as a couple may drift away. Over time, this emptiness compounds the loss, making life feel lonelier and more difficult. Beyond emotional pain, the practical consequences of no contact hit avoidance hard. Daily stress feels heavier. Without their partner helping to regulate emotions, even small challenges become overwhelming. Finances suffer. Many lose shared support in bills, planning, or career motivation. Household responsibilities increase. Chores, cooking, cleaning, and maintenance that once were shared now rest solely on their shoulders. Social life shrinks. Without their partner's influence, they may lose friends, invitations, and social balance. Health declines. Routines around eating, exercise, and care often worsen without encouragement. Major life choices feel harder. Without a trusted partner's perspective, big decisions become more stressful. Emergencies are tougher. Illnesses or crises that might have been manageable with support now feel overwhelming. Each of these daily struggles is a constant reminder of what they once had and chose to give up. The regret avoidants feel isn't ordinary. It's sharper because it combines two truths: the recognition of loss and the awareness that their own behavior caused it. They realize they rejected someone who offered them unconditional love. They understand they may have lost their best chance at real partnership and family life. They recognize they hurt someone who didn't deserve it. This regret doesn't fade easily. Unlike normal breakups where people can apologize, repair, or eventually gain closure, avoidants often face their regret when reconciliation is no longer possible. That leaves them carrying it indefinitely. The effects of no contact on avoidance don't just fade after a year or two. They often change the person long term. Some develop phantom relationship syndrome, clinging to their ex in imagination or through silent monitoring. Many become even more avoidant in the future, using stronger defenses to avoid another painful loss. Anxiety, depression, or health problems often grow worse. Their self-image suffers. They see themselves as someone who destroys good relationships. Trust in their own judgment weakens, affecting all areas of life. Vulnerability becomes harder, making future intimacy less likely. Understanding this delayed, compounding suffering is useful. It shows that their early indifference wasn't the full story. It validates the pain of those they left behind. It also explains why avoidants sometimes return months or years later, once their defenses finally collapse. But here's the important part: their pain is not your responsibility. Their suffering doesn't erase what they did, nor does it obligate you to comfort or forgive them. True growth requires sustained effort and change, not just regret. Ultimately, no contact works. It protects you from their emotional unavailability while forcing them to face the consequences of their choices. Their delayed grief proves that the path you chose is the healthiest one. Their suffering may be real, but it is also the natural outcome of choosing fear over closeness, independence over partnership, and defense over vulnerability. Their suffering may be real, but it is also the natural outcome of choosing fear over closeness, independence over partnership, and defense over vulnerability. What avoidants don't realize in the moment is that every choice to push love away plants a seed of regret that only grows stronger with time. By the time they finally recognize the true cost of their behavior, the people they once had often have moved on, healing, rebuilding, and creating a new chapter for themselves. This creates a painful contrast where the avoidant feels stuck in the past while their former partner is already standing firmly in the present. The gap between these two timelines leaves them unable to catch up, no matter how much they might wish to turn back time. And it is exactly this mismatch that keeps the avoidant trapped in a cycle of longing, regret, and unanswered questions. What makes this reality even harsher is that no one else around them sees the weight of what they are going through. Family, friends, and colleagues assume that months after a breakup, they should already be fine, perhaps even enjoying their freedom. Yet internally, avoidants are beginning to unravel, wrestling with emotions that they cannot express and pain they cannot easily name. The suffering becomes private and invisible, which only deepens their sense of isolation. They may try to mask it with work, distractions, or new connections, but none of these provide the healing they truly need. Every attempt to deny or replace what was lost only adds more fuel to the fire of their grief. By the time they realize they need help, it often feels too late. This hidden, delayed grief is important to understand because it explains why avoidants sometimes reappear months or even years later, attempting to reconnect. To their ex-partner, this may seem confusing, even insulting. Why show up now after so much time has passed? But from the avoidance perspective, they are only just starting to feel the real impact of the loss. Their emotional defenses kept them protected for a while. But now that those defenses have failed, they are overwhelmed by the full weight of what they once had and lost. Unfortunately, this usually happens at a stage when reconciliation is no longer possible. Their ex has likely moved forward emotionally and practically, leaving no space for a return. And this timing adds another painful layer to the avoidance experience, knowing that they recognized the truth only when it no longer mattered. The deeper truth is that no contact works not only for the person who was hurt, but also for the avoidant themselves, even though it feels like torture. It prevents them from relying on old patterns of returning and withdrawing at will. It blocks the cycle where they could come back for comfort only to pull away again when things feel too close. By being forced to sit with their choices, they are left with no escape from the truth of what they did. This is why no contact often becomes a turning point, not because it saves the relationship, but because it forces the avoidant to confront their fears and behaviors head on. For many, it is the first time they truly have to face themselves without an easy way out. That confrontation can either become the seed of growth or the weight of endless regret. Yet it is important to understand that not all avoidants will choose growth. Many may remain stuck in cycles of denial, guilt, or fear, unable to do the deep therapeutic work required to change. Their pain, while intense, does not automatically create transformation. Some may simply carry their regret like a shadow that follows them for years, shaping their future relationships without ever resolving the original wound. Others may harden even further, becoming more avoidant as a way of protecting themselves from ever feeling that kind of pain again. In both cases, the suffering is real, but the outcome depends entirely on whether they are willing to do the hard work of change. And sadly, many are not. This is why their delayed pain, while real, cannot and should not determine your own healing journey. For the person who went through the heartbreak of loving an avoidant, the lesson is clear. Their suffering, their regret, their eventual recognition of what was lost, it does not undo the pain you went through. It does not erase the nights you cried, the confusion you endured, or the self-doubt their behavior created in you. Understanding their timeline may give you perspective, but it should not bind you to their process. Your responsibility is not to comfort them or reopen wounds in order to soothe their delayed grief. Your responsibility is to yourself to continue moving forward and to protect the growth and healing you have fought for since the breakup. No contact exists for a reason, and their delayed recognition of loss is simply the natural result of their choices, not your burden to carry. Their suffering, while powerful, should never be mistaken as a reason for you to compromise your own healing. It is tempting to believe that because they eventually feel pain, maybe their love was real all along, or maybe the relationship could still be saved. But the truth is that real love is shown in actions when it matters most, not only in regret after it is too late. Their delayed response does not erase the times they pulled away, the moments they chose distance over closeness, or the many chances they had to show up for you and didn't. Their pain belongs to them, not you, and carrying that distinction is the most important step in freeing yourself from their cycle. It is only by staying firm in no contact that you protect your emotional future. This recognition can actually bring you peace because it proves that their coldness in the beginning was never proof that you didn't matter. It was only proof of how their attachment system works, how their defenses delayed the grief that most people would have felt immediately. When you understand that, you see that their indifference was never a reflection of your worth, but a reflection of their own limitations. That knowledge allows you to release the self-doubt, to stop wondering why you weren't enough, and to see that you gave what you could in the relationship. They were the ones who couldn't receive it, not because it wasn't valuable, but because they were not capable of holding it. And in time, they are the ones who will have to face the truth of that loss alone. The irony of the avoidant journey is that their deepest realization comes when it is far too late. While you were healing in those first months, they were celebrating their freedom. While you were crying at night, they were convincing themselves they made the right choice. And while you were learning to let go, they were doubling down on the belief that they didn't need closeness. But the human heart cannot escape its own needs forever. Their defenses eventually crumble. And when they finally allow themselves to feel, they are standing in a world where the person they want most has already moved on. That is a cruel but natural consequence of their timeline, one that no one else can protect them from. This mismatch in timelines is one of the most painful dynamics in anxious avoidant relationships. You feel first, you heal first, you move forward. They feel last, they grieve last, they regret when nothing can be changed. It is like two clocks ticking in opposite directions, destined never to align. And because of that, their pain does not bring reconciliation, but only deeper separation. By the time they knock on the door, the home has been rebuilt, the garden has grown again, and the door is no longer theirs to enter. This is not punishment. It is the natural way healing works when one person chooses to face pain early and the other chooses to delay. It is a divergence that cannot be undone. For the avoidant, this divergence often leaves a permanent mark. They may carry the memory of the relationship like a ghost, replaying what they once had and imagining what could have been if they had chosen differently. They may watch their former partner thrive and silently compare that life to their own. And in many cases, they will know deep down that they were the architects of their own suffering. This is why their grief often lingers so much longer. It is not only about losing someone, but about recognizing that their own actions caused the loss. That is a kind of pain that is not easily soothed, because it requires them to sit with the truth that they chose fear over love, distance over intimacy, and comfort over growth. And yet, even in this reality, the responsibility to change belongs only to them. You cannot carry that burden for them. You cannot reopen your healing wounds in an attempt to save them from the consequences of their own decisions. If they are ever to grow, it will not come from your return, your comfort, or your sacrifice. It will come only from their willingness to confront their patterns and to do the hard work of transformation over months and years. Until then, their suffering is just suffering, not change, not growth, not a promise of something better. And that is why your focus must remain on yourself, your healing, and your future, not on the storms they are finally beginning to face. This is where your strength truly lies, in recognizing that their delayed pain is not a signal for you to return, but a confirmation that walking away and staying away was the right choice. Too many people mistake an avoidant's late regret as proof of love, when in reality it is proof of loss. Love shows itself when two people are present together, not when one person is gone. Regret may feel powerful, but it cannot rebuild trust, it cannot undo years of distance, and it cannot replace the emotional safety that was broken. For the one who loved them, the best path is to respect your own healing and never trade your hard-won peace for their overdue sorrow. It is also important to remember that their suffering is not punishment. It is a natural consequence. They are not being cursed, nor are they being unfairly treated by life. They are simply feeling what every human eventually feels when they push away the very connections that could have healed them. Their pain is the other side of their choices, and in many ways, it is a necessary teacher. Whether they learn from it or not is beyond your control, but the truth is that no one escapes the reality of needing love, closeness, and support. Even the most avoidant person eventually meets the moment when independence is not enough. That moment often comes quietly, late at night, when no one is watching, and the weight of loneliness feels heavier than they ever expected. When those realizations arrive, avoidants often look back and see clearly for the first time. They remember the patience you showed, the love you gave, the way you stood by them despite their distance. They recognize that they had something rare, someone who truly wanted to connect with them, and they turned it away. This clarity, however, usually comes at the exact moment when there is nothing left to fix. That is why their grief feels endless, because it cannot be resolved through apologies or second chances. It becomes a wound they must live with, a constant reminder that the greatest damage came not from someone else, but from themselves. And this reality, while tragic, is what sets you free from their timeline. For you, the lesson is not only about surviving the pain of the breakup, but about never again questioning your worth. Their late suffering is proof that you mattered more than you ever realized. If you were not valuable, they would not hurt in your absence. If your love was meaningless, they would not spend months or years haunted by the memory of it. But their regret does not mean you should go back. It means that you gave something irreplaceable, and once it was gone, it could never be replaced. This should give you strength, not to return, but to walk forward knowing that your love has value, and that one day it will be met with someone capable of cherishing it fully. No contact, then, is not just about protecting yourself from an unhealthy cycle. It is about restoring balance to your life. It creates the space where your healing comes first, where your timeline is no longer dictated by someone else's defenses. It allows you to grow without interruption, to discover your own strength, and to prepare yourself for healthier relationships in the future. The fact that it also forces the avoidant to face their choices is simply a natural byproduct, but the main benefit of no contact has always been for you. It is your shield, your boundary, and your chance to build a life that feels full again, without waiting for someone else to change. In the end, the truth is simple. Their suffering may continue, but your healing must continue too. You cannot stop your growth to wait for their regret. You cannot shrink your future to fit their delayed recognition of the past. Life is about moving forward, about taking the lessons and building something stronger from them. While they may remain caught in cycles of fear and longing, you have the chance to step out of the pattern entirely. And the best way to honor your journey is to let their timeline belong to them while you commit fully to your own. This is the real victory of no contact, not just their regret, but your freedom.